I'm going to turn it over to our first academic speaker, Luan Alvarera, sorry. And Luan is one of our newer hires. I think we got a couple of new hires today from UGA that are going to be talking. He's one of our new hires that is our extension. We're excited about it. Extension precision ag for specialty, vegetable, whatever. You know, he's going to cover everything that Simmer and I don't. That's what we're going to put on him. So I don't know if we told him that or not, but that's why we hired him. So with that, Luan, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's do this real quick. And bear with us after Luan gets done. We're using his computer now. I'm actually going to switch computers real quick. He's got a bunch of large videos on here. So in the question and answer sometime in that, I'm going to switch over computers real quick. So
thanks, Wes. Yep, good morning, everyone. As Wes said, I'm a new hire, so I have 5 months here on the board, and I'm really glad to be here. One thing I want to mention, yes, he mentioned about the video, so that's why I'm using my computer. I see a gentleman right there that he was on my presentation yesterday for the blueberries, and all my videos, they did not work out, okay? So I'm assuring you that today they're going to work. As I'm a new hire, I don't have, I would say, a lot of results to show to you. So that's why I brought this presentation about the basics of precision and digital agriculture for specialty crops. And you see here, right on the bottom, it says, how did we get here and where we are going with these things, okay? When I started, I was trying to find something like a brand for my team. So as I'm a precision ag specialist just for specialty crops, I created the precision horticulture team. Right now we are on 4. I have a postdoc, I have a PhD student, and I have a research assistant. And we are all gonna be developing research on everything you see here. Alrighty, when I talk about precision ag, I like to show this video first. Here you have a Case IH International Harvest Mogul it was manufactured between 1910 and 1920s. And on the other side, you see an autonomous planter. That's a Raven Dot. It was released back in 2020. So you refill it, it goes back to the, when the seeds are gone, it goes back to the shed, you refill it back, and it goes back to the field and plant. So that's where 100 years apart brought us on precision ag, on machinery equipment. So after that, I like to show this. Challenging the status quo. If those people back there, back in 1920, you know, they had a tractor already, it was kerosene moved, and they could only carry one piece of equipment, which was a plower right there. If they said, no, we are good now, we don't need to use animals or use our hands anymore. If they did not have challenged the status quo, we would not have that autonomous planter today. And I like to show this one as well. For me, these are the most dangerous worlds in anything we see. We have always been doing this way, the 7 most dangerous worlds. So I mentioned how did we get here? It's because agriculture is made of revolutions. First one happened in between 8,000 and 5,000 before Christ, when the first human being placed the seed. We were nomads, right? We were moving from place to place looking for food. When the first human being placed the first seed, that's where agriculture started. And I'm showing this because I'm a storyteller, okay? We're gonna get there. The second one happened like thousands of years after, in between the 18th and 19th century. We started using equipments. They were animal mounted or machine mounted. You see here a couple of pictures. Here we have the Waterloo Boy, the kerosene tractor as well. First tractor from John Deere, actually moved by kerosene. And then the third one, Norman Borlaug, the father of the Green Revolution, right? The guy that created those high-yielding varieties of rice and wheat. And also after World War II, we had 240, right? So Green Revolution is everything attained together. because then that's where the third agricultural revolution happened. And after that, I'm going to show you this. So 8,000, 5,000, 18th, 19th century, and then like maybe 100, 150 years apart. The next one, the third, and then right now we are leaving the fourth. And I'm pretty sure you have heard this at least once in your life. Agriculture, digital agriculture, agriculture 4.0, precision agriculture, and everything. Precision agriculture, precision and digital agriculture are different. Precision agriculture is a management tool that you use to manage the variability of your fields. Okay? It's like you got your yield map from your combine, and then you change your plant population based on the high yielding and low yielding zones. But digital agriculture, we increase, we add a couple of things. We add automation, we add automatic decision making, we add computer vision, machine learning, we add, a bunch of these new things that people are talking about, Internet of Things, big data, which is a big amount of data. That's what the name says. AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Machine learning is just, we teach a machine on how to do things for us. Okay? Computer vision, pretty much the same as machine learning, deep learning, and automation. One example, a good example that I like to show, this data was actually collected at Auburn, Steve. This is from a planter. From here, all the way below. The projector is not really good, but I'm going to show you what. Population, the hybrid, planter speed, elevation, planting date, singulation, spacing, downforce, applied downforce, organic matter, uniform furrow, cation exchange capacity, furrow moisture, clean furrow, and soil temperature. All these data from here, what is that? Organic matter, cation exchange capacity, moisture, and soil temperature is collected by one sensor from the planter. And with that's digital agriculture, because that data is being uploaded on a cloud, and I can take decisions afterwards. So this is the organic matter map from the planter, and this is the yield map from the combine. Kind of similar, right? So that's digital agriculture. It goes to the cloud, and then we can take decisions based on that. I'm going to show you some technologies right now on specialty crops, as I don't have my results yet. So we have what we call digital agriculture platforms, and I'm skipping a little bit here because I have a short period of time. But when I fly a drone, I have a lot of pictures, and people always say, "But how I'm gonna do that? How I'm gonna process all those images?" Computers can do for you. We can teach computers now to do that for you. Okay? So here I have an example. Man, that's not good, Wes. So here I have a plant count. Okay? This is a cabbage field. So I can fly my drone. I can upload those images to a computer, to the internet, to the cloud, and they're gonna do everything for you. They're gonna just give you the results. Here the same with trees. I can count how many trees I have in my field, and I can also measure the size of the crown. Here another cabbage field, and then I'm zooming in here because you see those. Something happened here because the plants are way better on this side. So they're way smaller, and then when you zoom in, you have, on these platforms, you have the option to measure the size of each plant. You can count and you can measure the size of each plant. And the same here. You see like the difference, you see some reds, you see some yellows, and then you see a lot of blues. It's because the plant size is larger on this side of the field and it's smaller right here. The reason is because they planted that one later on than this one, for sure. This is onions, harvested onions being cured on the field. And I can fly my drone, I can upload those images to the cloud, and this software, this is onion sizing. You see that red color, that yellow color, that blue color? It tells me how many how many large size, colossal, a medium size, or small onions I have in my field. So that can help the growers to take future decisions for future market. Watermelons. That's a tricky one. And I talked about machine learning, and that's exactly how you do. You teach the computer to get those drone images on how to see those watermelons in the field. You basically tell the computer, hey, this is a watermelon, this is soil, and those are leaves. That's it. Okay. And another technologies that another type of digital agriculture technologies that are having a boom on the market right now are the robots and automation. Here's the data from the Future Farming. In 2022, in the total, we had more or less 1,411 robots on the market. And in a year, that number increased 73%. So right now, we're talking about 2,400 robots on the market, okay? And I always say that robotics and automation, I take this for the extension standpoint, which I don't know if I explained. I have 80% extension appointment. So my job is outreach. My job is to evaluate these technologies and bring the results to the growers, okay? Currently, you can find a new robot and new technology every week. So the challenge for the future is going to be how the farmer is going to choose in between those, how we're going to choose. Okay, we have to try it, right? And right now, these things are coming in the light of speed of life. And then Steve, that's your drone, okay? And a technology that is it's having a boom right now is this spraying drones. Dr. Steve Lee is going to cover a lot about this. That's his drone actually. And on this one, we have two options. You can even spray liquid, or you can spray solid. You can spread solid. And in this case, Steve was doing cover crop spreading with this. Also, payload robots. This robot here is called burro, which means donkey in English, and it can carry up to 1,000 pounds. So people are using it to mow the lawn. And there's a follow-up mode, so the robot is following this person right now. So what they're using for, you set the follow-up mode, so you're harvesting blueberries, I would say. So you put your boxes on the robot, so it's gonna follow you all the way down to the road. You unload it, and the robot can come back and then you load it again. So you can do it either autonomous, or you can do it on a follow-up mode or remote controller anyway. Another robot technology. Okay, yeah. This is a modular one. You can do anything with this. You see here they put it a spreader for chicken litter. Here they have a propane tank with burners to kill weeds. And here is a wheelbarrow. So this one is a modular. You can do pretty much anything with that. This one has a payload capacity of 500 pounds. Automated weeder, like mechanical weeder. This is a solar-powered robot that has those mechanical arms. It does have LiDAR sensors right here. So it measures the canopy, and it knows exactly where the weeds are. And those mechanical arms are going to do weeding for you, and you don't need to spray it. So that's really good for organic farmers. I'm going to show a before and after. Hopefully it's going to be good for you to see. So this is the before, right there, on that same spot. And that's an after. Okay, so that's a really cool technology that they just released on the market. But these things are expensive right now. For example, that one, if you want the autonomy and everything, is not tractor mounted. You click a button, it goes there, and it does the job for you. It costs $500,000. Spot spraying. We call it green on green spraying. I don't think you're going to be able to see the drops, but this one, it also has sensors. And they have small nozzles that does like a jet spraying only on the weeds. So we call it green on green sprayer. This one doesn't have an option to be an autonomous robot. It is tractor mounted. And this one is a robot. We currently have this one in-house in Tifton. And we're gonna run some trials on it on a variety of vegetables and also on small fruits like blueberries. It's called Exag R150. You're gonna see here that I'm gonna mess up with the controllers, and I can change the direction of that jet. I'm gonna come back and show back to you. It says, like the company says, that it has a 40 feet swath. So I'm also gonna try it with pecans, and I'm gonna do some trials with blueberries and a lot of vegetables because I got a grant from the Vegetable Commodity Commission. It does have an option to mow as well, so when I'm not spraying, I can attach that mower and I can send the unit to mow my fields autonomously. So that's a 46-inch deck, and also has an option for boom sprayer, which we also have. Okay. Exag R150. I can give you in a second. So I'm gonna run here. So that's a laser weeder. We're talking about like equipment right now. So I came here as a precision ag engineer, and I saw a lot of vegetables being transplanted by hand. So I wanna give it a try this new equipment that are released on the market, like mechanical transplanters. We have one in-house right now at the Vidalion Research and Extension Center, which we're gonna do some research with that. And this is how onions are being transplanted today. And I went there, like there were like 70 workers more or less in that field. So we went there, I went there to count like how much time it takes. And even after that, you see, it's hand transplanted, but there's a lot of this being left on the ground. Even after they go with the cultivator, there are, onions just laying on the ground. So I did a little research on that, and you can see here, that's the average. I'm gonna put a line right there. It takes like 90 seconds for one person to transplant 2 rows of 15 feet, which means that it takes like 39.6 hours for an average person to transplant an acre. What is right to say is that it takes 4 people to transplant 1 acre a day. And it's a lot of money spent. And even though it's hand planted, the amount of transplants laying on the ground, partially transplanted, or even doubles is increased with this hand transplanting. So as I mentioned, we have right now a transplanter on the shed that we're gonna start doing some research with it. It's a carousel transplanter. That company is right here, mechanical transplanter. They were really nice. They leased the transplanter to us, and we're gonna start doing some trials with that. Future research from my team, I'm gonna go like really quick because I'm running out of time. Actually, I run out of time, right, Wes? So UAV and UGV spraying efficiency and efficacy for several vegetables, blueberry and pecans. Digital agriculture platforms evaluation like that one to count onions or other vegetables as well and measure the size. Vidalion mechanical transplanting. UAV, predict the yield of the vegetables using multispectral images from drones. Also the same for pecans, the same for blueberries. We're gonna do a trial about drip irrigation clogging or fault detection using drones as well. Evaluate an artificial pollination tool for blueberries, and this other two here. So I'm sorry, I really appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
So now, up next, thank y'all for that. We got our technical issues, I think, out of the way for the rest of the day, hopefully. We've got MD Sultan Mahmoud, and he's a new assistant professor. He's been on about a semester, started in August at University of Georgia in Athens, and he's going to talk about advanced precision ag technologies for specialty crop production. So we'll turn it over.
Thank you, Dr. Porter. My name is MD Sultan Mahmoud. I'm an assistant professor of precision agriculture at the Department of Plant Pathology at the University of Georgia. So my research team at University of Georgia mainly focus on developing and applying precision agriculture technology for different crop production. So in my presentation today, I will be presenting some of the research that relevant to specialty crop production. The first study that I think I'm going to present, where we develop a precision sprayer system, the main motivation of doing this experiment was to reduce the excessive chemical application. So those who are from tree fruit industry, you may know, so grower usually use conventional airbrush sprayer, and that type of sprayer do not have the capability to adjust the spray volume. So as a result, you can see a significant amount of chemical or wastage in top of the tree, inside of the tree, that we used to call the gap between trees, and also in the ground. So researchers also tried to calculate how much chemical actually reaching to the canopy and how much chemical are actually wasting. So they found only 40% of the chemical reaching to this canopy area, and the remaining 60% actually lost in different sections. So not only the chemical loss is the problem, so this type of chemical application can also cause the economical damage. So in total, it can cause about 8.2 billion annual environmental and economic loss in the United States. So our motivation was to actually reduce this huge amount of economic and environmental loss by reducing the excessive chemical application that we are wasting for tree fruit industry. So we came up with this solution. We came up with the precision sprayer technology that will be spraying only the red region where the canopy is located, and it will not going to spray anything for the blue regions. And if you know, in tree fruit, I think it's particularly for apples and some other peaches or some other tree fruits, so there are some variation within the canopy section, because you will be find some of the high density area, and you will be finding some of the area low density. So in our sprayer system, actually we consider that factor as well. So high density area, actually we spray more, and low density area, we spray less. So that's why, so in our precision sprayer system, tree canopy characteristics measurement was one of the major factors that we considered. To develop a complete precision sprayer system, we first started with developing some kind of prototype system that I can show you in the next slide. So this is the prototype system that actually we initially started with. So we use a LiDAR sensor, and we use a computer to process the data that calculate the canopy density and canopy volume that we used to call tree canopy parameter. So the reason why actually we use LiDAR sensor has actually an advanced capability because it is not affected by the outdoor lighting condition. And also it's not affected by the humidity or temperatures. That means this sensor actually is made for using in outdoor. And another factor actually that LiDAR sensor brings, so LiDAR sensor can give you the accurate location of the object. So conversely, we could use the camera sensor, but camera sensor probably I think is going to be difficult to use in the night condition because growers sometimes interested to spray in the night condition. So that's why we use a LiDAR sensor to scan the tree, and it provides us the point cloud data. And then we develop an algorithm to process those point cloud data. I'm going in the next slide to show some of the processing. The first slide you can see, this is the point cloud data looks like. So this area actually you can see this is the tree canopies. But we also have some kind of point that come from the ground. We also have some kind of point that come from the support pole. And there are some invisible points that come from the trellis wire. And another thing I want to mention, LiDAR sensor has an extended range, so it can actually capture the data from one single tree, probably in 5 trees at a single time. So that's why at the initial phase, we first initially segmented the target tree that we want to spray for. So next phase, actually we want to remove this unwanted point, the support pole point and also trellis wire point and ground point. That's why we actually detected those points and we removed those points from the ground, and also we detected the support pole point and trellis wire point. So grower actually use the support pole, gives support to the tree fruit, and trellis wire actually to tie the branches that helps the tree to grow up right. And we also remove this unnecessary point to keep only tree canopy points I can see in the picture. So this point and this point actually removed. And the next phase of this algorithm actually what we did, we divided the tree in 4 different sections. So these are the 4 different sections that we divided, that we can calculate the density in 4 different sections separately, and we wanted to use 4 different nozzles in 4 different sections to spray separately. So we tested our system in 3 different size of tree condition to see its robustness. So tall size tree, medium size tree, and shorter size tree. So this is one of the examples that we found from smaller size tree. That you can find that we have canopy point from 3 different colors. Actually, it located in 3 different sections. And we did not have any point in top portion because this is one of the examples that comes from the shorter size tree. And we calculate the density of each section separately to guide with the nozzles to control and also make the variation within the sections. In addition to canopy density, we also consider the one factor that I mentioned, canopy volume. So that's why we use a alpha shape algorithm to make a 3D structure. You can see this is the 3D structure of the apple trees and get the canopy volume in 3D space. And we consider the canopy volume and canopy density as a deciding factor for nozzle control. So after successfully developing the prototype system, what we did, we actually retrofitted this prototype to actual sprayer system. That you can see this is the regular airbus sprayer system. So we use a LiDAR sensor in the top to scan the tree, and we place a computer in the cab to process the data. And with the canopy density and canopy volume, actually we control the nozzles. So those actually who are familiar with airbus sprayer system, you know that there are 2 major components that we found from airbus sprayer. So one is the nozzle that actually decide the amount of chemical requirement, and another one is the fan unit. Actually, fan unit actually released the airflow that actually forcing the spray droplet reaching to the tree. So in the first phase, you can see we are able to control the nozzle, so we still found some kind of off-target deposition because of the airflow misadjustment. So that's why we designed an iris damper. You can see this is the design, and we control that iris damper with a motor and also a microcontroller, and that was controlled by the LiDAR sensor based on the canopy density and volume. So we fabricated this one and we placed in the back side of the sprayer. So how it was working? So if we are having control that airflow entering to the fan chamber, so we may have a control that airflow outputting from the fan chamber as well. So for example, if I give an example for the high density tree, so high density tree, we are expecting that a large amount of chemical requirement compared to the smaller size tree. And obviously, I think we need a large, strong airflow to force those amount of spray droplet to the tree as well. So we control, actually, we develop a model and an algorithm to control the opening, this opening actually in a way that large air actually will be entering to the fan chamber. We open more, and large air actually when it enters to the fan chamber, it will be releasing large air as well. And conversely, for the smaller size tree, our expectation is that canopy density is less, chemical requirement also less, and airflow requirement also less as well. So we adjust the opening, we actually close the opening in a way that less air actually enters to the fan chamber, and it will be releasing less air from the outlays as well. So after successfully actually integrating the system with regular conventional airbus sprayer, we did the test in 3 different tree conditions, in high density tree, medium density tree, and also small or low density tree as well. But before conducting the actual spray operation, what we did, we actually installed the water sensitive paper in different locations to see the spray deposition and coverage. We placed L1, L2, and L3. Actually, that stands for location 1, location 2, and location 3 at the ground to see any deposition that we are having in the ground or not. And we placed 4, 5, and 6 in the front side of the tree to see how good our deposition is in the front side of the tree. And we placed 7 and 8 at the back side of the tree to see how good our deposition is in the back side of the tree. And we placed 9, 10, 11, 12 at the edge of the next row to calculate is there any off-target deposition that reaching to the next row. So result of this experiment, we found that our technology that we developed is able to save about 56% of the chemical use, especially at the early stage of the canopy development. And with the help of this airflow system, we are able to actually make most of that spray chemical to the tree, and we are able to actually reduce the chemical use that in the off target that is depositing on the ground and in the next row. So now I'm going to present some of the study that is related to artificial intelligence. So I'm going to present some of the summary because of the shortage of the time. The first study that I'm going to present where we develop a fire blight disease detection system, so in order to manage early. So those who knows about the fire blight symptoms, so fire blight is one of the devastating bacterial disease and that causes severe tree loss in the orchard. So growers usually actually use the pruning approach. They prune out the infected branches to actually manage this fire blight symptom. But the pruning decision, whether actually which branch need to prune, they make decision by walking or driving through the orchard. So for small scale orchard, this is not a problem. But for the large scale orchard, suppose grower have an orchard with several hectares, this is really a problem to see for individual canopies or branches and identify the fire blight symptom. So to solve that problem, we came up with a solution with UAV technology. So we fly the drone over the orchard, we capture the images, and we develop the algorithm with artificial intelligence to actually identify the disease on the capture images. So I'm not going to present the detail how actually we developed the algorithm, but I think I'll be presenting some of the results. So you can see in the picture, in the top portion, the red region shows that is actually infected with fire blight, and the bottom picture shows that actually detected by our system. And it generated mask because we use a mask-RCN-based deep learning model. And finally, actually we generate a plant-specific disease map, you can see. So here the red region shows that area actually having fire blight symptom, probably with branch or canopies, and green region shows that are healthy canopies. So how this map will be helpful? So grower can use this map and directly drive or walking to that particular red areas and prune out those infected branches. It will save time. They don't need to look for individual symptoms. And also this map has the geographical coordinate built in. So a robot or automatic system can also read this map and directly go to the spot and prune out those infected branches. The second project that I'm going to present related to AI, where actually we try to calculate the amount of agrochemical requirement based on tree canopy characteristics. Because growers sometimes interested to know about their chemical expenses before conducting the spray operation. So this technology actually calculates the tree height, canopy volume, and canopy cover by flying over, and also calculate the amount of agrochemical requirement before conducting the spray operation. So you can see we have a UAV that flown over and we capture about 700 or 800 images from one orchard block, and then we stitch them together. Actually stitching means we actually combine them together to get one single images that include all the trees. And finally we generate a digital surface model, you can see in the picture. So digital surface model include object height information from mean sea level. So in our case, the white pixel was the tree. So it includes the tree height information from mean sea level, but we want the tree height from orchard surface level. So that's why we had to generate another model that's called digital terrain model. The digital terrain model actually includes the orchard surface information from mean sea level. So now I think we know orchard surface height information from mean sea level and tree height information from mean sea level. We subtract the two to get tree height of all the tree located in an orchard block. And we actually visualize the results in 3D, you can see. That include all the heights, and we multiply the tree height with ground sampling distance to get the canopy volume of individual trees. And finally, we calculate the agrochemical requirement for individual trees that I think we targeted. And to visualize the results, so actually we calculated the canopy cover. So you can see in the red circle area, it's more greenish color. That means that area having more canopies, and agrochemical requirement in this area is more than the blue region, because that is the light green color. So next study I'm going to present, that is actually this is a ongoing study for us. So in this study we're aiming to improve the efficacy of the mechanical harvesting, especially for the short day onion, because this is one of the problems for short day onion, because this is more vulnerable. When we use a mechanical harvester, it causes about 8% or more bruise damage, and that is we found this unacceptable from the grower side. So in this project, we're gonna use an instrumented sensor, and we're gonna install this sensor on the onion bulb and conduct the harvesting operation as like actually we usually did with other onions, to see the movement of the onion during the harvesting process. So to analyze the movement based on the instrument pair. We can identify the area where actually this bruise damage is happening. And based on the recommendation, probably we're going to come up with some kind of design idea of the mechanical harvester, or probably we can come up with some kind of parts design to actually improve this bruise damage during the mechanical harvester. So this is the last experiment that I'm going to show. So where actually we develop a robotic pruner system for apple trees. So those of you know about the apple harvesting, apple actual pruning. So this usually conduct in the dormant season because grower actually wanted to remove some of the unwanted branches, especially that can give some kind of vegetative crop during the time of the fruiting year. So in this experiment, actually we try to come up with a technology that can identify which branch will be potentially give us the vegetative growth and need to be pruned, and we develop a robotic pruner to prune out those infected branches. So in order to develop this technology, we actually use a LiDAR sensor that first scan the tree, and then we use an algorithm that 3D reconstructed the whole trees, and we use a artificial intelligence technology to identify which actually branch need to prune and potentially give us the vegetative growth during the fruiting year. So coordinate of the information sent to a robotic system that we developed. This is a 6 degree of freedom robot. So we have 3 rotational joint and 3 prismatic joint, and this is a linear type actuator. And we also have some kind of manipulation system of this robotic system that can read the coordinate that's sent by the intelligent unit to prune out those identified unwanted branches. So we tested this system with small size to the medium size of the branches. A significant work needs to be done to make it a robust system, and potentially I think further work needs to be done for this experiment as well. And with that, I would like to thank all of you for your time. I would be happy to take any questions.
And up next, we've got Dario Chavez, and he's our extension peach specialist, and he's going to discuss precision ag and peach production, reimagining our future. So with that, Dario, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for the time for this presentation. Again, I am Associate Professor in Peach Research and Extension at the University of Georgia, and my training is not engineering and also precision ag, but I thought that the need to work on something that would be applicable for growers, that's something that we wanted to do. So a little bit about peach. U.S. a third world producer. The top producers are California, South Carolina, and Georgia. And one thing that you have to keep in mind is that hand labor is basically used for peach production pretty much in all the activities. And that probably can give you an idea of why we need something with precision ag. So here I'm going to just describe briefly one of the projects that we have been working on, developing a smart irrigation peach app. And the needs about this peach app came from the fact that a lot of people don't realize, but you know, you are in Georgia, but we have a lot of periods of drought. This is a graph from the drought monitor map, and you have an x-axis basically dates, and then the y-axis is area percentage, and then you have different colors from light yellow to magenta, where magenta is basically exceptionally drought. If you see in Georgia, we have had several years that we go actually in really high levels of drought. And if you think about peach orchard, you have peaches that would be planted in the ground traditionally without any help at the beginning. So what we did research-wise in our program, we found that is install irrigation since establishment actually increased plant growth and also yield early on. So we decided to do that first study to try to recommend the growers to go ahead and establish irrigation from the beginning. But then the question came, how much water to supply and how often? And we thought there was a good group in Tifton working on the smart irrigation apps in different field crops, and we wanted to use their knowledge to be able to apply something to our crop in the way that a grower can just open a cell phone and set up an orchard and basically set up a scheduling for their plants. Now, when you think about a peach, you have different developmental stages. It's a little bit different to a field crop in the sense of like we are not a yearly cycle. We have a tree that is going to be planted and stay in the ground for 14, 15 years, which means that the requirements of the use of water is going to change as they move on. So the first 4 stages that probably we have considered are a 1-year-old tree where you have just one weed, and then the growth of the tree basically changes as the canopy moves along. So we use that as a factor to be able to calculate the amount of water that we use. And what we did is we just use a ET-based irrigation method, and again, just using the Penman Mountain FOA 56 equation, where we were looking at what that tree would be affected in the environment, how much water we're putting in, how much water the tree is taking up, and what is the environmental conditions. Thanks to the University of Georgia, we have a great weather system, which means that we have access to all that weather data wherever we are in Georgia. And these apps can actually access that data and calculate the information for the growers without them having to do anything. We came up with a Casey curve using the knowledge from different locations and places, and basically we modify that Casey curve based on the canopy volume of the trees. And the app is pretty easy in the sense of like the grower or the user will add the area that you're going to be basically irrigating, the soil type that you're locating at. When you open the app, actually it will open a Google Maps option, and it will use your GPS information from the Smart app, and basically will tell you where you are located at. And then you can set up a spacing. In this case of orchards, again, you're not doing 100% of the area's coverage for irrigation. You actually are doing a certain amount of area under the tree. Root depth, that is actually entered on the system by us and is a setting based on age of the tree. And then the irrigation details, which is the most important thing. As a grower, you know your system, how much is the emitter rate, how many emitters you have under the tree, and so on. In the weather information, I mentioned about the UGA network. Basically, the system pulls all the data from the closest weather station, or if you are in another state, can also use an NOAA grid system, which means that you could test this in Alabama and other locations as well, where you have beaches. Of course, it has not been tested with experiments to see if they work, but it's an option that you can have. And then with this data, you will create the area to be irrigated, acres, and then in here, basically the crop evapotranspiration. And then the magic will happen in the app, where it will calculate the amount of water that basically you are going to be putting per irrigation event. You will choose how many irrigation events you want to have per week. You can go from 1 day to 5 days or to 7 days. And the system also will tell you if it's not enough for your location. What I mean by that, depending on your soil conditions and your system, if that amount of water is actually too much for your soil to be able to create runoff or other situations, or if you have to split it to more times. And the app looks like this. Basically, you have a plot, and you can create a plot where it will give you the amount of acreage. You can decide if you want a drip or a micro sprinkler system. We put both options, and also it will calculate based on the efficiency of the system as well. Now, let me show you some of the data that we have, because we evaluated both in a young orchard and an older orchard, mature orchard. So we established an orchard in 2020 when one of the more widely used cultivars, July Prince, is a high-yielding cultivar with 2 rootstocks, Guardian and MP29. And then we use the irrigation methods that will be an app, a sensor-based method, just basically having sensors that will tell us how much water is needed in soil to a certain threshold, and a control. This control was the traditional way that was done before, basically no irrigation until 4 years after establishment. And then we had the app, and this was the UGA Smart Sensor Array, where we have 3 sensors, watermark sensors that basically would tell you what's happening in the plant. and we had 2 different sensors installed in the plant in the root zone to be able to have an average, one within the line of irrigation will go in the middle, and one a little bit to the side to average that information. So this is what we found. In 2020, 2021, and 2022, and this is the amount of water per tree, and the bars correspond to the different treatments where you have the app and the sensor base. And then you have rainfall, that is the blue line, that it goes like that. In the first year, you can see that the app and the sensor, the app always, generally speaking, suggests less water than the sensor. And what would happen is that we didn't do a rainfall adjustment in the first year because we were testing the demo, and we decided to go ahead and start doing a rainfall adjustment. And what happens is that in the first year we save 27% of water savings when you compare the app versus the sensor-based method, and in the second year 55% of water savings. When you think about water savings, you say, okay, how the tree did with those treatments. So here we have, again, years and then different months, and this is the trunk cross-sectional area. If you grab a saw and cut the tree and look at the area of the trunk, that's what you measure, a measurement of growth, and then a canopy volume, basically just based on height and width. And you can see that the treatments, app is gray, control is red, and the sensor is a little clear white. You can see that the trees start separating a little bit from each other until the third year, where you have all the irrigation treatments basically are larger in comparison with the non-irrigated treatment. So we had done already a study before that we showed this, and this was our second time that basically showing this, so the growers know that truly, we need that. When you look at canopy volume, the same thing. You almost have 50% more canopy for irrigated trees in comparison with the other ones. We did it with a mature peach orchard, the same deal. In this case, we had yield data as well. And the difference was that we were saving about 41% the second year and 28% of water savings in a mature orchard. And when you look at the different treatments, app versus sensors, there was not significant difference between the two treatments, which tells you that the app, even when it's producing this amount of savings, is actually good enough to keep the tree going and not having an issue. Another situation was when you look at yield, there was no difference equally between the app versus the sensor method, which tell you that you know how much you want to put of water and what times, and it's actually being very efficient. So these trees were producing about 40 to 50 kilograms per tree. It's 120 plus pounds per tree, and they are highly producers, like I mentioned before. So the Smart Irrigation app is available right now. You can download it for basically Google Store and the Apple Store. And another thing that I wanted to work on is, and this is kind of close to my ideals as a long-term project, is looking at three-dimensional high-throughput phenotyping, characterizing the architecture of a tree. Why? Because sadly, pruning costs are pretty large in comparison to basically all the costs that we do in the case of our peach orchard. And then also, I want to be able to produce fruit in the most efficient way. What I mean by that is that we're not growing trees, we want to have fruit. So, you look at apples, and the apple system is way ahead of us as a peach producers. So we want to see that. Now, we know that there's an effect from rootstocks, and that's how the apple revolution happened, because they found dwarfing rootstocks. And we actually have some dwarfing rootstocks now in peaches. So we are very excited about that. And then I want to explore training systems. What I mean by that, the traditional form that a peach tree is grown is the open base. Well, I want to start exploring high-density plantings systems where you actually change the architecture of how you will be growing fruiting walls. So we think also the architecture will allow us to study more about crop load, basically crop load management, being able to actually establish more of that information. So what we did is that we used a LiDAR scanning of peach trees, and we created a plant point cloud data of the trees and in a germplasm plot. We did this in the winter when all the leaves were off because we were interested again in that nature architecture of it. Created a tree QSM quantitative structure models of the trees, and then the idea was to be able to characterize the branching index, branching density of those trees. Why? Because we are interested of this variation. These are different cultivars, and you can see that the cultivar, these were planted and grown in the same conditions and managed the same way. You have a cultivar where you have a total branch number of 472 branches, and then you have a cultivar that can produce 1,200 branches. And now, here's where my head as a breeder comes in. I say, can I breed for a cultivar that can produce a less amount of branches but produce the same amount of fruit? And I think so, it is possible, but we don't have the tools to be able to characterize architecture. And nobody really has focused on that a lot. You know, everybody's breeding for a fruit, but people kind of forget about the tree and peach production in general. You know, you want a big peach tree, but you don't think that maybe I want a smaller peach tree that I just don't need to prune that much, but it produces the same amount of fruit. The information that we obtained for a tree is the different numbers volume for branching order. We have also the number, the length per branching order, the numbers, the areas, and the number of branches, which is basically very useful for our data. Now, this is just a quick comparison of some of the research that we have done. Here we have MP29 rootstock, and that is the dwarfing rootstock, and then GD is Guardian. So MP29 produces about a 40% canopy volume in comparison to Guardian, that is a full size 100%. And you can see that the tree height starts seeing some differences in here. The most interesting thing is that, if you look at canopy volume, you can see that MP29 trees are producing a lower canopy, a smaller canopy setting. So even if you were trying to do breeding for roostocks, for example, you can start identifying roostocks that will give you a lower canopy volume and start doing that using some of this technology. So what we want to do at the end is improve crop load management and basically see if we can look for other training systems. Now, 3D models will allow us to have a in silico database of germplasm year after year, where we can go and mine data whenever we want to, and also look at genome regions that maybe allow us to establish certain relationships for breeding and genetics. And then, again, breeding for tree architectures, trees that are more efficient without affecting fruit quality. This is my email. This is my lab site and also a blog for peaches. And if you want, this is my personal cell phone. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. Thank you so much.
We got a couple minutes for questions for Dario if you have any.
All right.
Any questions? I was instructed not to give you a speaker gift today, so you're the only one that doesn't get one this session. You already have one. Is what I was instructed. So we still appreciate you coming. You have my appreciation. All right. Up next, we have Emily Bedwell, and Emily is a PhD student, hopefully to be a PhD candidate soon. Let's not put too much stress on her. Working for George Velitis, and she's going to talk about smart irrigation app development and implementation of that for specialty crops. So I feel like Dario's talk, and I gave a talk on blueberry irrigation yesterday, were all kind of a good segue into the little bit deeper background that Emily is going to give you today. So thank you, Emily.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Porter. I want to go ahead and apologize about my head cold. I know I sound like a stuffed up toddler, so if you have any issues understanding me, please just feel free to shoot a hand up and I will clarify. But yeah, as Dr. Porter said, my name is Emily Bedwell. I'm a third-year PhD student at the University of Georgia Tifton campus, and today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about how we're working to get more crop per drop, so more efficient irrigation practices, and how we are using the Smart Irrigation app suite to do that. So a little bit about the Smart Irrigation app suite. This suite of apps, there's a segment for several agronomic as well as horticultural crops. So we have segments for avocado, blueberry, citrus, these crops that you can see here. These apps are free and they are in the public domain. They are available via the Apple Store, or if you're an Android user, your Android Store, Google Play Store, that kind of thing. And we are currently working to develop a sweet corn segment as well as a pecan section. And today I'm going to talk primarily about the sweet corn section and its capabilities. And so as Dr. Chavez was saying, these apps are performing very well. We can see here comparing, let me see if I can figure this pointer out. Yeah. So when we're looking here at the app versus soil moisture sensors that are actually in that soil profile, we're saving water about the same here, and this is reducing water input by about 50%, so that's pretty substantial. And then here again comparing, we can see the app is performing very, very well, and this is for corn and then for peanuts, so it's performing well across various crops. And what I want to point out here, this is how the cotton app has been performing. So we're seeing a substantial decrease in water use here, in irrigation use, 75%. But what I want to point out is look at this increase in yield. This is really really interesting, and this is exactly what we want these apps to do. So that's very nice to see. And as Dr. Chavez said, so these apps are working, and this is where the magic happens, in this black box. And that's what we're going to talk about today, where the app is doing the heavy lifting and how they're actually working. And you as the user, all that you need to worry about is inputting your location, your field name, weather station, and then the app really does most of the work for you. And these apps are working based on the soil water balance model, and basically what this means is that we're looking at water inputs and outputs in the soil. So inputs are going to be your precipitation. We are supplementing that precipitation with irrigation to balance with how much water the soil is using, or how much water the plant is using and the soil is losing, to balance that out. And we're looking at that through using the Penman-Monteith crop evapotranspiration model, and I'll go into that in a little more detail. But the soil water balance model is basically looking at a soil water deficit, and you have a soil water deficit when that plant is using more water than is being provided by the rain, which means that we're going to need to supplement that with irrigation. And so when we're looking at irrigation, we need to make sure that we're considering the weather parameters. And so there are three ways that you can include weather parameters into the app for your specific field. One, if you're located in a field in a state that has a mesonet, you can include a mesonet there, and it will pull that precipitation, temperature, and then that Penman-Monteith evapotranspiration in. However, if you're located in a state that does not have a mesonet, you can pull it from the National Weather Service. So this can be any state. And it's going to pull that same information. It just may be not as accurate. And then, of course, for the most accuracy, we strongly encourage growers, if they're using the app, to have their own weather station or at least their own rain gauge, just so we can have a more accurate representation of how much rain is being provided to that field, so irrigation recommendations, of course, can be as accurate as possible. And so the app, what's running in the background is a crop coefficient curve. And basically what this is a visual representation of crop water needs across growth stage. So we all know that as crops are growing, the water needs are not the same in the initial stages as it is when the fruit is filling, as the tree's growing larger, and that sort of thing. And so we're looking at water needs as a function of time there. And I know Dr. Chavez spoke a little bit about the app and what it kind of looks like, but we'll go into this just very quickly in a little bit more depth. So the app is going to look just like Facebook, Twitter, or X now, Instagram, any of these apps that you have on your cell phone. And when you open the app, you have the capability to create fields, and you can create more than one field. As you create your field, it's going to open up your location here, and you can see it'll pinpoint you, and you can draw the polygon of your field. So if you've got two fields side by side that you want to manage the same, you can draw that polygon there. If you have one smaller field, larger field, irregular boundaries, you draw that and make that happen. And part of the magic is that the app is going to pull from Web Soil Survey your soil type of that field. So it's okay if you don't know if you've got loamy sand here or sandy loam there, and that's going to affect your management practices or your irrigation practices. The app's going to do that for you and consider that, and then the field capacity and holding capacity of that soil type in those areas. And so it defines that for you, and then it'll show you those soil types so you can see. And then as we talked about, the 3 different sources of that weather data, and you can select that there of your choice. And so when you have your field created and the app is up and running, it's monitoring real-time weather parameters. So it's going to measure whether it's raining or not, how much it rained, temperature. And you're going to get notifications just like you would if you missed a call from your son, daughter, whatever. It's going to pop up there. And it's going to say, okay, we've got an estimated soil water deficit of 42%. And if you are growing field corn or especially sweet corn, a 42% water deficit means that you really should probably irrigate. And so it's going to say irrigation is recommended. And from there, of course, you can look and see that deficit there. We can also see an estimated growth stage based on growing degree days, because remember, this app is pulling temperature data. So we can know estimated where that crop is there, which is going to correlate to its water needs. And then when you do irrigate, you can click Add Irrigation. It's going to bring that deficit down to 0 and kind of hit that reset button of the app is going to, again, start looking and seeing, okay, when do we need to irrigate based on if we get more rain, if we do not get rain for a little while, and the crop's growth stage and water needs. And this is an inside look at the Peach app, just a brief overview. So you can select here, and I want to point out, because these apps are specifically segmented for different crops, they have parameters depending on those crops. So the one for sweet corn is going to be obviously very different than the one for peach, whereas with the peach you can select what your orchard is, which is going to, of course, relate to water needs there. But for field corn, sweet corn, cotton, it's going to be different. But here you can see you can select for the peach, you can select your canopy year, you can select your variety, and then of course your different types of irrigation. So if you're not using, center pivot irrigation, which for peaches you wouldn't, for sweet corn you might, you could select there whether you're doing single line, double line, drip, and then what days you would like to irrigate, and the app will base off of that. I would like to irrigate Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The app will take that and make a schedule for you based on that. And then it will give you that schedule, and it will say, we're going to irrigate for 7 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, still monitoring rain and weather conditions, and then adjusting, therefore, with that. And if you would like to, you could download that information in the form of a CSV file. So all this data that's being collected, you could download it and have that for analysis. And so the objective of my project for my PhD, we're looking at developing a sweet corn segment, and so we want this to be user-friendly, integrative, and we're going to add this to the segment of the SmartIrrigation app suite. So a little bit of background about sweet corn in the southeastern U.S. I know that a lot of you you may not know this, but if you are a sweet corn grower, you probably do. The states of Georgia and Florida produce over half of the globally marketed sweet corn. And so in the state of Georgia alone, that value in 2021 exceeded $78 million. So this is a very high value crop. It's also a very high input crop and very high water needs crop. And because of this, growers tend to irrigate frequently and plentifully. And so looking at that though, most growers are not using advanced irrigation scheduling techniques. And so we're working to develop the app to help with that. So with developing the app, we're of course collecting data. We are estimating daily water use of the crop. We're developing a crop coefficient curve, the curve that I showed earlier, that's that visual representation of water needs over time. And that's going to be for sweet corn specifically grown in the southeastern U.S. And then we're going to benchmark our curve with NDVI values so we can know individual field water needs at specific times. So our data was collected from grower-managed sweet corn farms, and these farms were located in Decatur, Mitchell, and Seminole County. So this is the heart of sweet corn country down there in southwest Georgia. And we had 12 field seasons. We had three fields per over 4 seasons. And so what our data collection looked like in the field, we had weather stations that was gathering meteorological data. We collected soil moisture data via drill and drop Syntec probes. So we drill a hole into the ground, put our soil moisture sensor in, and it's measuring soil moisture every 4 inches from the surface to 24 inches in depth. And then our remote sensing data for our NDVI, we're gathering that from Planet, which is a satellite platform. So we're looking at this soil moisture data, and we're trying to see really how much water we're assuming that this crop is using at different times. And from that, we plotted that our water needs as a function of growing degree days. So we're considering meteorological factors. And really, there's a high variance there, but that is because we're considering environmental factors. And anytime you're considering environmental factors, you're going to have a lot of variance there. But we looked at the polynomial trend there. And the app is going to work on a linear model, so we fit a linear model at different segments to that polynomial. And so this is what is running in the background in the app when it's looking at water needs. So it's going to calculate our growing degree days based on real-time temperature, and from there it's going to say, okay, we are at 600 growing degree days, so we're assuming the water needs of this crop is right around here. And I mentioned benchmarking with NDVI. And so you may be thinking, Emily, why are we benchmarking? Why is this important? And that's a very fair question. So if we're looking at field A and field B, let's say field A is your field. It looks great. You did everything just right. You managed it perfectly. These curves, they're representative of a field growing under ideal conditions. This is not a crop that's struggling. This is a crop that is growing under ideal conditions. But field B, this is your neighbor, and he got a bad bag of seed. And because of that, he's having emergence issues. So even though maybe you planted on the same day, let's say for the scenario you did, these two crops are going to have different water needs, right? Or we can at least assume by looking. Your lush green field is going to have higher water needs than your neighbor's field. So if we're looking on the crop coefficient curve, we assume, because you guys planted on the same day, right? Right down the road from one another, same meteorological factors, that the water needs are going to be the same here. Let's say right here about 600 growing degree days. But that's not true, not for your neighbor at least. We're assuming that the water needs are there. So let's say, at about a crop coefficient of 1 for 600 growing degree days. But it's actually the water needs of about a 300 growing degree day crop. And so if your neighbor is irrigating based on what that curve is saying without benchmarking, they're over irrigating. So that's why we're benchmarking here. So we chose NDVI as the factor to benchmark because NDVI is a greenest factor index, and so it is looking at the biomass of the crop. It's correlated with biomass. So we can think that as the crop is growing, increased biomass, increased water needs, higher NDVI value. So therefore, we thought that NDVI and KC would be correlated. And our results show that they are correlated. They're correlated very well. So we can see that NDVI is very well representative of our crop coefficient curve and those values. However, we mentioned benchmarking. So we have one field, and you can see these values are not quite correlating as well as the other fields. But that's okay. Because look, here at the end of the season, the crop is actually where it needs to be. And this grower had a nice looking crop at the end of the season, but they just manage a little differently. And because of that, if they're assuming that the water needs of their crop here is up here with their neighbor, they're over irrigating. And so that's why we're benchmarking here to say, no, actually, your water needs are going to be about a 0.2 crop coefficient here. And so that is why benchmarking is very helpful in this scenario. So the future work, we're going to integrate these results into the SmartIrrigation app suite. We're going to work on in-house plot testing at our research park and see how the app is performing compared to soil moisture sensors, compared to grower standards, and then of course a control. And then we're going to bring this back to the farms and see how it's working on growers' fields. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now. And if you'd like to email me, feel free. And if you'd like to learn more about the apps, you can follow this link.
Yes, we got a couple minutes for questions.
Yes.
On that last slide,
Yes.
the crop for what was the county for
For this here?
Yeah.
So these fields were actually fairly close together. The field in the red here and in the black, they were right down the road from one another. And so really what that is there, it was the same variety, it's just different management. It's interesting to see, but that's why we found that the benchmarking is actually probably going to be helpful to integrate into the app. So I don't have an answer for you, but yeah, just an interesting phenomena. Yeah. Yes. That's right. Okay. Yes. R- That's right. So yeah, it would depend on your crop. I'm looking at sweet corn specifically, and so once that canopy, it is not full canopy closure, not like a peanut or something where it's going to saturate. But once that canopy architecture does close, the NDVI is leveling off there. But it's correlating well with water needs because sweet corn, the water needs are the highest at its maturity. It doesn't dry down like most agronomic crops. It's staying level there. And so we found that NDVI is probably going to be one of the best factors there, but that is an interesting thing to consider when you're looking at, depending on the crop, definitely. But for sweet corn, we think that NDVI is probably going to be the best metric there to look at. Thank you. Yes.
Did you measure like the NDVI did not saturate it when you have like the highest growth rate of the corn?
So what you see there, that plateau, that is peak water needs, and that's exactly where there was no manipulation other than the way we get this NDVI value is taking a KC, and the literature said to multiply it by 1.5. A gentleman did that work years ago with field corn, and it correlated well. And then a similar one has been done with cotton. And so we just followed that, and it aligned well. And because of the values and the growth stage of the crop, we don't really see that being a saturation. Yeah.
Any other questions? Emily, here's a small token of appreciation for the speaker today. Appreciate it. Very good job. Got two more speakers coming up. Up next is Steve Leaf, Associate Professor at Auburn University. And Steve's going to talk about current applications and current regulations of spray drones, another hot topic area, I feel like. So give me just a second to get you pulled up, Steve. There you go. Good Porter.
All right, good morning. I guess it's my turn to put everyone to sleep, in this morning session. So glad to be here today. Thanks for Dr. Porter's invite to speak in this session. I work for Extension, a heavy Extension appointment, so typically we like to tell a few jokes, in the talk, about what we speak, but we don't have the time to do that today. I may have to use up my time slots just to show a little bit more content. If you have questions, I put my contact information at the end. You're welcome to, call me, email me, text me, whatever your question, that's fine. This time of year, I drive a lot on highway, so I can have plenty of time to talk to you, more than just research, if you want to tell me some other stuff. So technically, when it gets to extension responsibility, I'm Stanley Culpepper's counterpart. But I'm not going to talk about nuts edge control or fumigant, which I don't know nothing. I don't want to touch it either, that kind of stuff. His talk yesterday was good. All right, so we do use spray drones to spray herbicide, but that's only one small usage that we can benefit ourselves from the technology. This is a partial list, and you can look into all the things that these new technology allow you to do. And I'm going to highlight some of these usages so you can understand why I say that. This talk is focusing on specialty crops, although my background is in row crops. So when you talk to me about cotton, peanut, soybean, corn, I feel a lot more comfortable than specialty crops because I didn't know you need a pollinator for watermelon until about 4 or 5 years ago, until we run our first watermelon trials. Because somebody asked me, how do we get a seedless watermelon? I was like, that's a good question, Got to have a pollinator. So when it gets to drone spray, it's quite different than your typical thinking of a big old ground rig, a truck carrying water. You have to run it back and forth, to remix after you finish your big 1,000 gallon or 1,500 gallon tank. All right, everything you need is in a trailer. It's pretty much in a trailer. We call it drone trailer. And it comes with all different format because you mix your chemical, you charge battery all the time. So that generator right there is going to drive you nuts. So a lot of people have figured out a way to, getting either diesel generator or finding some way to insulate them so they don't go crazy. But good headset is needed because you can't hear nothing while you're standing on top of it. It's all noise, So for communication purpose, a lot of the drone operation, commercial drone operation, use headset that airplane pilots use, to communicate. Again, drone trailers come with all different design. They could be very small and mobile, like this one can go pretty much anywhere. Think about full plots, really rough places that you can't drive big stuff there. You can drive a truck there and still spray because the platform. You can also do something fancy. I don't know where these guys got that truck from. I got several questions about that, retired military truck. But it does look good. And also look at how they set up the drones. You can let the drones land on top of the trailer because you move the trailer around your field all the time. Why? When you got a big field, you don't want to let the drone fly half a mile back and forth to do your stuff. You waste all the batteries. Stay close to your job site is always what we need. This is why we need a trailer. A good drone operation never lets anything touches the ground except for the drones because you're always on the go. This is also another advantage. You will be able to spray across multiple states with that setup because I can hold everything on interstate. You're not going to hear any crop duster or ground rig operator telling you, I can take jobs from Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Mississippi, all the way to Tennessee. Not going to happen with one airstrip. But with spray drone guys, we're able to do it. And actually people are doing it now. This company spray anywhere from Central Florida to Texas to Kentucky because they're big. They sprayed close to 100,000 acres last year with the drones, and they love it. All right, back to row crop business. Not the row crop business. I tell you my row crop background. Back to the tree business. All right, I don't go to tree orchards more than 3-4 times in a year. So every time I go, I try to do something fancy, or interesting. This was the first testing we did 2 years ago when T40 just came out and spraying the trees. I know there's a talk on propeller downdraft, and I do like it. You see how the trees are being shaken by propeller downdraft? That's what we need, because when this thing don't spray enough volume, 15, 20 gallons, we really need the air from the propeller to push the droplets in, all right? This challenge some of the theories that you learn. I'm a weed scientist. I say when you spray Liberty or glufosinate, you need more water. The more water, the better, because they're contact herbicides. Here, I would say, small volume will still work because I'm not only relying on water as my carrier. I'm also relying on the air as my carrier. The air blowing into the tree is my carrier. This is why I can cut back spray volume by 2.5 times and still get the same deposition in the canopy. I'll show a little bit of that data at the end so you know I'm not just all about talking. We do run field trials. All right, so 2 of UGA's new hires talk a lot about mapping trees, LiDAR, all of that stuff, and I'm glad they mentioned it because it is very important for us, when it gets to trees. All these are generated by software, and it's really not something hard to do. I'm looking for commercial or commercialized option. If something is a proprietary, only applicable to one program, I'm not super interested in because my grower has to be able to use this in 20 minutes to generate all these without having a PhD degree. All right, so I'm very, very applicable when it gets to things to be done. You can see after mapping the field, this is not from LiDAR, this is just from 2D RGB images. You go buy a DJI drone, $900 can still do the same thing, The point clouds is not very accurate. The DSM is probably terrible compared to some of the things you do, So this is actually a problem. We want to incorporate LiDAR to get a better height estimate, but so far this is about all we have. And also this thing's supposed to recognize tree crowns, and it don't always work. So I have to manually annotate a lot of these tree crowns because these are little trees. Goes back to the point that he made. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, sir, but your presentation was really good. We do need to focus on little trees. These are little pecan trees. You waste most of your chemical using your big ground blaster. Spray trees with barely no leaves. That's almost like using an anti-aircraft gun shooting little birds. Not airplanes no more, all right? So with this workflow, and this is all commercialized, you can specify how many gallons, usually half gallon for that size of tree, and I'm blowing the stuff right into the canopy with strong propeller downdraft. And because propeller downdraft is really strong, I don't have drift problem. Everything's going into the canopy and without flying away. So spraying this whole tree group, if this is 1 acre, typically, you gotta do 100 gallons per acre or whatever. And then if you only got 50 trees out there, I'm spraying half gallon. I'm half gallon per tree. And then maybe I only spray 25, 30 gallons and I'm done with the job. And you have to spray 3 times more with your blaster and drift all over the place. Also from chemical perspective, what does that mean? Chemical savings. I'm not letting my money fly off the air. Everything is in the tree, and we know that. I'm not even spraying a lot of those grasses to make them healthy, wasting my chemicals. How does the coverage look like? Again, unfortunately, highly variable when it gets to area application. This is always the case with crop duster, airplanes, and also the drones versus ground sprayer. Ground sprayer CV, the coefficient variation is usually pretty small, about half or 1/3 compared to the airplane or drones. All right, that's just a part of it. But if you know what you do, it don't look terrible. Look at the back of the leaves. That's where aphids, mice, and bad stuff hides. So one of the things my grower told me is you got to be able to hit the back of the leaf. I said, oh, yes, sir, I'll try to make it work. They also tell me you got to fly into or around the power tower with 4 guy wires because I can't spray all the stupid weeds and grasses inside the guy wires. I said, yes, sir, I'll do it. And we made it work. Drones were literally flying around the big power tower with 4 guy wires. In between the guy wires, we were able to do it without colliding the drones. I know this meeting is about fruit and vegetables. I'll just talk about this real quick. The usage is very diverse. This is a container nursery. Poor guy wearing Tavac suit, like spaceman, mask and hat and all of those in middle of July in Baldwin County next to the Gulf. It's not a pleasant job, to wear like this. And also, he has to drag this hose down to the alley and roll it back and, and do this thing 10,000 times a day, just because the hose, And also, if you look at this application, he's spraying pesticide. Oh, well, this is water, but if we're simulating pesticide, first a drift from that hose, and the second is, can you tell me a rate that he's applying? It's going to be a wild guess. So it's not very accurate, but that's what we do now, what we have now. Again, this eliminates the hose problem. You don't have to drag your hose all around. And see that propeller downdraft, it's blowing the stuff away. We need this propeller downdraft to hit the insects, the pests, the disease, and whatever. It's hiding deep down there in the canopy. All right, I know there's a talk on Thursday about propeller downdraft. I missed it. Feel bad about it, but again, I just couldn't be here on Thursday. Got too much stuff. And also, those nurseries still use people wearing this big thing to spread the granular herbicides and the fire ant baits. All right, this is terribly slow. This guy can only do about 8 to 10 acres per day doing this. Walk several hundred, several thousand times, down the alley. Whereas a spray drone can spread with 3 times better uniformity, finished at 7 to 8 acres in about 45 minutes. That's what we did in a nursery. It's a big nursery, Flowerwood. Some of y'all probably know them. They have about 2,000 acres of production across 6 areas. Somebody mentioned about spreading. Yes, spray drone can not only do spraying, also spreading at the same time. Cover crop is a big thing. Although I'm totally unsustainable because I spray chemicals all day long, sometimes I still try to be a little healthy, spreading some cover crop out there in my trials. Drone was spreading cover crops after corn harvest. This will be the same for vegetables as well. We did this before, on vegetables. This was September the 6th. It was really, really, really dry, like Sahara Desert dry back then. So we have to use a turbo till it in. Sun hemp and the tillage radish germinated, miraculously. And then December the 12th, close a month ago, look at the size of that radish. Shelby is only 6 feet 2 tall. This is almost his chest height. And we got some radish almost thick as his leg. All right, so that was spread by the drones. Uniformity was really good, and that's the sun hemp. I know a lot of vegetable growers like it. All right, exciting part, spraying blueberries. Let me check on time, I got 2 minutes. So finally, I'm talking about something really, really relevant to fruit and vegetables. All right, blueberry is an important crop down here. This is a sprayer built by a company in Georgia. He did a pretty good job, you know. We put a fluorescence dye in the sprayer when they spray, and also the collector, the mylar cards, and water sensor paper on both sides, you know. This thing was applying around 25 gallons per acre. Not too bad, 25 gallons per acre. I feel that's more like 30, but grower said 25 gallons per acre. All right. I use all the 3D mapping, all of those, and this is what I did. I'm not flying manually, all right? So the drone hovers about 5 feet above the canopy very precisely because it knows where the rows are, flying right on top of it, and blew the dye into it. I was flying at a 10 gallon per acre. This is a 10 gallon, this is 25 gallon per acre. I'm spraying the same amount of dye, 34 grams per acre by both, 34 grams by both. Think about it, I'm mixing the dye as your chemical. This one put out 25 gallons per acre, that one put out 10, you know? So the concentration in the tank is a little bit different, but the amount of AI sprayed is the same. Go back to that propeller downdraft thing. Heavier drone is what we need because heavier drones means more air, you know, in terms of cubic foot per minute going to the canopy. That means better penetration. T20 carries 20 liter payload. T40 carries 40 liter payload. This one is way heavier. Cars were placed at the top, middle, and the low of the canopy at the 3 level. So I'm showing canopy penetration, all right? These cars placed at the top of the canopy. This is the middle canopy, this is the bottom canopy. I don't need to say nothing, pictures speak for itself, all right? 40 liter versus 20 liter. This is why I want a T80, you know, instead of T40. So the heavier, the better. All right, DJI made to T60, so we gotta wait until another 2 years to get T80. All right, results. The only results I'm gonna show. 25 GPA sprayed by that ground blaster, 10 GPA sprayed by my drone. Sprayer pass is between the rows here, between the rows here. Drones fly exactly on top of the crop. So this is drone, I flew right on top of the crop. All right, we both sprayed row 1 and row 2, row 1 and row 2. Wind was blowing this way about 5 to 6 miles per hour. Not really strong wind, but significant enough to blow things off the track. Row 3 and row 4 shows the deposition downwind. We didn't really spray them, but we measured how much dye got blown downwind. All right, EPA cares about it. All right, so with ground sprayer, you see a little bit higher drift at row 3 versus the drone. At row 4, the drift was pretty much the same, so that's good. All right, drift-wise, they're similar to ground blaster, maybe a little bit better. What we care the most is the deposition of spray dye at high, middle, and the low of the canopy. High, middle, and low. You can see the distribution 3D about the dye deposition. If this is your real chemicals, and that's what you want, the higher the better. They are very similar. Lots of variation because we don't have enough reps, but very similar in terms of concentration. So this proves one thing. Higher GPA doesn't mean they always do a better job because I'm using propeller downdraft or air as a compensation, you know, to make it better. This is just for entertainment purpose, all right? Irrigation pond got eaten up by all the weeds. You know, I work with this grower, they're a big row crop guy. They were like, we know you have a drone. Can you come here and spray this? I said, all right, as long as you provide chemical. So, yeah, we sprayed it. Nothing fancy, just glyphosate in high rate, you know. So we sprayed this pond. You can see all the perennial smartweed, the Hampsasbania that get real thick. Those are probably way taller than me, you know, over there. So how does it work? Well, I wish I could spray again, but I saved his pond, you know, so he was able to irrigate it again. Otherwise, he can't even pump the water out because it's, you know, the pump underneath is getting choked by all the weeds. Regulation-wise, you're welcome to take a picture, and I can send all the slides to you. You don't have to remember. You do need a bunch of things out there to spray legally because this is not something you can open the box and spray as freely as you want to. You know, I'll be able to walk you through these if you're decided to pull the trigger and buy the drone. And also, if you're interested in about spray drone, this is going to be the premier event in North America. You know, very informative, very user-friendly. We're having the second annual user conference at the end of February at the Gulf Shores. You can scan the QR code and get you to the registration page. I'm getting a team from FAA headquarters in Oklahoma City, and also EPA reps from DC. APCO is the alliance from the Department of Ag from all different states. They're sending a rep to talk about regulation from the state perspective. CropLife America, Global Spray Drone Task Force, research tool, equipment manufacturer, experienced operator, so it's going to be a lot of knowledge there, plus field demos of different drone models, brands, and also mixing trader. So scan that QR code for more information. And then I've probably gone over time. I do apologize.
You're good.
Yeah.
You got plenty of time, man. You get first.
Oh, okay. This is my contact info.
It's not our time. We got a 5-minute buffer built in between.
Oh,
So
okay.
we've been
That's
doing
awesome.
speakers done excellent. So any questions? I'm sure y'all got questions.
Sorry, I rushed everything through. It was really, really fast. Yes, ma'am. I used the software came with the drone because it's a DJI drone, so DJI has a software called Terra. But that's a good question, because we do need to have other software having the same capability to allow me to design the 3D route. This is why I asked him that question, what software you use to process your LiDAR data, So.
Any other questions?
So, yeah, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been looking at how to monitor whiteflies, primarily to try to reduce the burden of the way whiteflies are monitored now, putting out whitefly traps or sticky tape and then going out and retrieving them, bringing them back, having to manually count all that. So that was our goal initially, and I'm going to talk about the work we've done with that, plus some of the work we're doing on trying to improve scouting whitefly trapping as well. So initially, what we were looking at is something I came up with initially was this is the conceptual drawing of that basically you would have white or yellow sticky tape exposed, and then you could program your system to pull that tape in and take a picture of it. So what we have is it doesn't show here, but we have a big roll of tape. The bigger the roll, the longer it can kind of stay out in the field. And then the motor pulls it in, and we take a picture of it that sends that picture to a computer inside that then connects to a modem that sends it wirelessly to a web server. So this would, what we thought it kind of looked like, and it would be, wireless communications, a cell modem, like a Wi-Fi router, except it's on the cellular range, so it's sending it cellularly. Remote monitoring, so we won't be able to put these out remotely so that you don't have to go check on them very often. So our goal and what we kind of accomplished was about 2 to 3 months. You could leave it out there and collect data without having to come back out to it. We wanted to develop a model so that we could take that information in and have it automate the classification or identification of the whiteflies. Like Luan was saying, you have machine learning. You're training the machine to learn something. So we were training it to learn what a whitefly looks like. Real-time data. So this data is downloaded, put on a web server. You can observe the images and the classification within minutes after it's doing it. What we were doing initially was collecting whitefly images twice a day. So every the morning and just before evening, we would have data collected. Again, it's at low maintenance. So here we were doing some tests just to see how what the repeatability was. So it's solar power. There's also a battery. If you open it up, you can see there's a cell modem here. This is the yellow sticky tape. You can kind of see the roll of tape back in the back. And here's the camera taking the images. So first iteration, we've had some issues. The biggest one was environmental issues. We were getting some of the systems, the wires weren't very well basically insulated, and some of the water was getting in the trap. And so someone would start working, you had to go out and reset it. So the low maintenance part wasn't working very well. The camera focal requirements. So we're looking at fairly small insects, these whiteflies. So the focus onto the yellow tape was a little bit of an issue because the yellow tape could get loose, and then when it got loose, it wasn't perpendicular to the image you're getting from the camera, and you get some blurry images. And just sticky tape management. Sticky tape is just a mess to work with. You get it on your hands and it gets all into everything. So we had some of these things that we were trying to overcome for the environmental conditions, and also for what we call making this more applicable to, say, other types of traps. We separated the sensing part of the trap from the data, the electronic part of the trap. And so basically what this shows is we had three components that we divided up into: the power source, which is our solar panel, charge controller, and battery. And then we had a control box. So the control box is something you can connect to any sensor. You just have to reprogram it and have it collect the data. But in the red here we have what the control box is, which is control switch, motor drivers, light controller, data modem, and the computer. And then that connects to your sensor box. So now our sensor box that has the yellow sticky tape is separate, and it connects, with just regular connectors to the control box. So we have an encoder that makes sure that we pull the tape the right amount to get in front of the camera. We have the camera that's input to the controller. We have lighting inside to light it up, and a motor that pulls the tape. So the communications is what all the IoT stuff that you see now. A good example is what we talked about, like soil moisture sensors in the field. But it basically, we have each trap has a system. The way we're doing it now is it has its own IP address, and you have an IP address that you're connecting to. That is where your server is, where we have stored our web application, basically, and our model that will take the images and count and classify the whiteflies. So the IP address out here at these allows us to not just read data, but also push information back out, so we can diagnose things. We can change the programming to do whatever we want, if we want to do that without having to write all the way back out to the field. This was a web page that we developed. You can't really see it very well, but you can. There's a picture of there's a GIS map of Georgia that shows where the traps are. It gives you an indication of the trap numbers by the size of the circle there. You can also go in and actually look at the individual images. So each image is brought in and stored for that date, and you can go in and actually bring it up. So if you want to just look and make sure the counts are correct without having to verify or rely on the model, you could just look at the images. All the images are downloaded and stored. So this is a little more, a bit bigger picture of that. This over here shows the storage of the image. We store the raw data image and the processed image, which shows the counts. To develop that ability to count, we created a deep neural network model, which is just basically, again, machine learning. We train it to say, we train it by saying, this is what a whitefly looks like. Next time you see it, you'll know it's a whitefly. We did have to do a little bit of extra training to disregard other things like water droplets and things that could disrupt it, especially things that were white and reflective. But training is fairly straightforward. These deep neural networks are getting almost anyone can do it. You identify what you want it to recognize, which is basically putting a little box around each whitefly. You feed it into the model, and then it trains itself up so that it recognizes those features. And so in this case here, this is showing our model performance on some white yellow sticky tape. So you can see it. These little green boxes were identified, and it shows the count: 217 whiteflies. I can't see what that number is, but basically, it's very, just that part is useful for research because right now when they put out these traps, they put out a lot of traps because we're looking more at sort of a wide area distribution of whiteflies and movement. So you have to travel a lot and bring them in, keep them stored till you can look at them later. But with this case here, once you get the traps and an image of it, you can count through these really fast and help alleviate a lot of that issue. Oh. So the one other thing I'm going to talk about is we're also looking at on-leaf detection, which is a little bit different. I'm not sure where that one's not working. But anyway, whiteflies, somebody was mentioning, that's where the insects are primarily. Whiteflies, aphids, thrips, somewhat underneath the leaves. Also, we have adults and nymphs. So, where do you detect the whiteflies in the canopy was one thing that we're looking at, is if we want to get automated or make some kind of assistive system to assist scouts, where's the best place to detect them, and can we separate the adults from the nymphs? That's fine. It works on this one. Basically feed on the bottom of the leaves. This is cotton, but we also are working with tomatoes and some other vegetable crops. But you can also get, in this case, limited access to a thick canopy. For IPM, a lot of these recommendations, you select 30 leaves randomly, then you collect the number of whiteflies that you see, and then you have to have like 2 or 3, 4, it depends on the crop, whiteflies per leaf, nymphs or adults, and you then determine whether or not you need to make a spray. So what we're looking at is what we can do to assist collecting that data more accurately. So we examine the whitefly distribution in the plant canopies, where basically the difference between the population variability within plants and between plants. So we collected a lot of data this past year just looking at the plant and where the whiteflies are and how many there are. Every day from August to October, my graduate student went out and collected data from 64 plants, and he looked at total whitefly per plant, total whitefly in the node that had the highest density of whiteflies, and then image of whiteflies under the leaves. Then he used just a regular cell phone primarily, also a tablet, and did some analysis on that. I'm just going to go kind of quickly like what some of the observations of that were. The variability was within plants greater than between plants, which we expected, which basically means that plant to plant the distribution was about the same. But the distribution across the plant nodes was quite different. And also, if you found the highest infested node, it usually would contribute up to almost 50% of the total whitefly population. So they seem to concentrate somewhat. And if you look at the nodes, this is a little backwards from the way you normally do it, but the top node, this is the very top node of the plant, and then this is the subsequent nodes down, and the frequency of whiteflies on the plant. So they basically are congregating at the top of the plant. So collecting data representative of where the biggest numbers are would be closer to the top 3 nodes of the plant stem. We also looked at, this is a different model now where we're just going to add the classification of them on the leaves. So we took some images, as I said, and we did some labeling on that. And unfortunately, the model didn't do too well. This is just concentrating on data. We looked at a model that just classified everything as whitefly, and that would include adults and nymphs. And then we also looked at 2 classes. And this mean average precision, normally, this should be over 90 for a good model. And so we were getting some mistakes, I guess, either in the labeling and basically telling the machine what a nymph and a whitefly were, or we also may have had some a lot of overlap between the adults and the nymphs that made it difficult to segregate those. But we're just going to have to relook at the data a little bit. I don't think it's anything that should be difficult. Other people have done it. If you look at this is kind of what it will look like. You take a picture under the leaf, and in this case we've got the model for adult and nymph, and then model adult, and it's just showing where the whiteflies are and counts them up for you. That one's 31 and that one's 42. So those were actually models that were fairly good response. This one is just looking at the whitefly nymphs and low numbers. So normally you'll probably have a lower number on the bottom of the leaves. So the other thing is like what kind of scouting techniques or how can we help with that? And so we didn't really get to test it too much, but my student here, he came up with this system here where you could slide under the leaf and take an image, and then that would then feed in. You could also collect GPS information, so you know exactly where you collected it, when you collected it, and later on create a sort of a map of all the data that you've collected in the field, both in time and space. But this image here is taken from this camera, so it would be a real easy way to go around and say collect 30 samples of leaf images. So future work to kind of where we're at now is my graduate student has a really good idea on how to modify the remote whitefly station so we don't have sticky tape. That would really help a lot. Also, the way he's looking at it, we would be able to get, I think, not have much issue with environmental conditions like rain. Improve our classification model that was obviously needed. Also work on this handheld whitefly assessment tool that can store this information. And something I didn't mention, but we can add other insects to our model. So we're kind of focused on the small insects with our system. So in that vein, thrips and aphids would be good to train it to. We're using just a camera that can focus in on the smaller insects. Also beneficials and other whitefly species. We're, I think, really interested in seeing the beneficial populations, especially in organic production. So yeah, I thank my graduate students and undergraduate students and some faculty that I work with, and most of this is funded by the USDA project. Thanks.